Hello everyone, Dr. Christine Smith back for a really cool live today talking with Dr. Greg Eckel, who is a naturopath that has been specializing in using frequency medicine and advanced lab testing to really make a shift for Parkinson's. And he's had some substantial results. And so I wanted you guys to get to hear him speak just so that you can understand the potential of what is out there and just the different and to our advantage to really get ahead of the curve with some of these things because I think it's confusing. And I think anything neurodegenerative has a tendency to be really scary for people and has had a track record of being told that there's not much to do about it. And one of the tricky things is, neurodegenerative stuff is an accumulation of things over time. And so that can make things difficult, but we have so many resources now of understanding how the body works that we've made some really big strides. So I wanted to invite Dr. Eckel on today. Hello, Dr. Eckel. How are you?
Hi. All right. How are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. I was just telling everyone a little bit about you and just some of the cool stuff that you guys have been doing in this realm. So I'd love if you could just share with everyone a little bit about yourself and how you fell in love with this niche you've been working on.
Oh, yes, I would gladly share. So I have been in medicine for 25 years, naturopathic physician and Chinese medicine practitioner. And we're blending the best of the East with the best with the West. So I like to say where East meets West naturally. We've kind of the culmination of my life work is here in the Energy4Life Centers in Park City, Utah. And we kind of through my own life experience and trajectory, I've become a brain regeneration specialist. And that came out of my own basically loss and tragedy 6 years ago. I chuckle about it because life is one of those roller coasters, right? No one gets out of here alive. My wife at the time, Soraya, uh, I was with her for 8 years and feel truly blessed to have encountered this being. When I first met her, I felt like the aliens put this woman on the planet. She found a region of my heart that I did not know existed. And I've always followed my heart, listened to my heart, and I had to follow my heart. So we blended our families, blended our practices. She had 3 children. I had two. We even had a maid named Alice. We bought our first house together with that blended family, and there was a plate, an orange Fiesta Ware plate. It became the harbinger of ominous things to come. I'll just say that it became fodder for the kids and I. It was like, oh, mom's out in the attic again. She'd go into the cupboards looking for this orange Fiesta Ware plate, then down the hallway where we kept the camping gear, and then out into the garage, and then wind up in the attic. But it wasn't just once. It was multiple times a day, as if it never happened before. And, at that point, I had been in practice 18 years and I had never seen anything like it. We kind of exhausted maybe it's mold, maybe it's perimenopause. She was in her young 40s. It became clear, like, gosh, I don't know what's going on here. So one day my office manager, Chelsea, came up to me and said, hey, Doc, Soraya just left the building. And I said, what do you mean she just left the building? Yeah, she strolled out with her lab jacket and stethoscope, said goodbye to the patients, and walked right out on the streets in Portland, Oregon. And it was at that point I knew I had to grow up, not throw in the towel, but we went looking for solutions. And I already knew the medical system was fractionated and busted and broke, but to navigate it with your wife's life on the line is something differently, entirely different. Even being a physician, I had a hard time navigating. And so my heart, I already knew, seeing people over those 18 years, I knew the system was broke. But just to the state of disrepair that it's in, we were not helped. We went on a massive journey. I became, started asking, I found Case Western as the prionic surveillance center in North America. I had no idea we had a surveillance center for prions in North America up to that point. I started talking to world experts with, I knew psoriasis was 1 in a million, but unfortunately the medical community agreed with me on that one. And she, kind of this differential diagnosis was very rare conditions. One, autoimmune encephalitis, inflammation of the brain. Another one was Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. It's only 300 cases in North America diagnosed every year. Super rare. As it turns out, what they offer you in the studies is surveillance and then a free brain biopsy at the end of that ride. From her first symptoms to when she left her body, it was 18 months, Christine. Brutal. I had the practice, the kids, and Soraya's care. That process really ripped me open as a human being, and in such an odd way reinstated my faith in unity consciousness, thinking, God, we must have written this before. I didn't even know love could exist in this 3D reality, and now here she's gone. Like, where did she go? And it's kind of the remembrance of energy is not created nor destroyed. It just changes forms. And it's given me a deep appreciation for life, for these bodies we walk around, for community, for friendship, and for the practice of what we do here. I know people don't have to go it alone. I know, we have a blueprint, and there is that aspect of deep presence and being seen. That has changed the trajectory of my life. And you asked me, well, how did you get into this? And it's really given me the ability to speak into the heart of the matter, really acknowledge we are human beings. We're not been taught nor trained on how truly powerful we are, that we're going to talk about today. And it's also, the heart is the matter. We are multi-dimensional beings, and we're able to access that. The answer lies within for all of us. And having that ability to really listen and have deep presence together is really crucial and key. And lo and behold, it's leading to some really phenomenal results. I didn't want my suffering to be for naught. I became a brain regeneration specialist as a result of my journey, and we're just getting started.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. I think most phenomenal practitioners have been through some kind of hardship in their journey that has made them passionate about what they do. And thanks for the work that you're doing, because that was kind of what I was talking about before you hopped on, is it's just, this stuff can be really scary when it comes up in life. And I think the way that our conventional system talks about it tends to be in a way that doesn't always have a lot of hope. And so that is one of the other reasons I wanted to bring you on, is just because I know you've had some pretty profound hope in your practice, and you're doing some really cool things, from working with frequency medicine to helping people kind of tap into a deeper side of themselves in the work, because you do it as holistic care. So I'd love if you could talk about what it's been like implementing these, we call them cutting edge modalities, but really it's kind of using some older wisdom and just bringing it back. And then I know you've had really special success with Parkinson. So I'd love if you could just share about that.
Thank you. Yeah, the work, it's interesting, right? It's multifactorial. So to really unplug people from the system. So, and I'll take Parkinson's, for instance. So why Parkinson's and brain regeneration and neurodegeneration or neuroregeneration? So I got in on the prionic textbook. It's still in its first edition. Prions are misfolded proteins. Stanley Prusiner got a Nobel Prize in 1987 for the discovery of these. A lot of people talk about them as senescent cells or zombie cells, but of proteins. And it's basically a protein gets misfolded, and then it starts signaling to other proteins to misfold as well. And that's where the degradation comes in. Well, on to get people to understand that these are not things to be feared, and that perhaps conventionally we don't have the answer. So it kind of gets into a broader discussion of Newtonian physics and quantum physics, right? And Newtonian physics, point A to point B with time in between. And in a quantum component, we can stand that up where time becomes irrelevant. And it's basically you go out of time, out of space, out of place. Nobody, nowhere. A lot of these things are taken, Joe Dispenza has really solidified a lot of these. Lynn McTaggart. A lot of folks have been talking about the field and the quantum, but bringing that into a clinical encounter sometimes proves challenging because it's kind of, we haven't been grown up with this information. Now we all understand it because we're on our devices and these, supercomputers in our pockets where frequency is taking information into a receptor. Well, this is a massive receptor when working well, and even when not working well. So we start addressing limiting beliefs. I see so many people that come to me with a Parkinson's diagnosis. And I arrived at Parkinson's because of the prions. In that textbook, a lot more people have Parkinson's disease, but this is also beta amyloid plaque and Alzheimer's. This is Dow proteins and Lewy body, dementia. There's a lot of neurodegenerative conditions that actually have prionic activity at the base of it. Well, I got to thinking, okay, well, how do we get proteins to reconstitute, reform, get out of their disconfiguration? And it took me to frequency, sound, and light. So in our healing center here in Park City, and hopefully this is the first of many centers around the globe, that's what we're going for, is we have sound bowls. We do sound healing and frequency with crystal tone bowls, have elements in them and symbols. We also put essential oils into those bowls, and we bathe the body. So all of the cells are bathed in frequency. Well, those frequencies have vibrations where certain cells will shatter and others are reconstituted. We then bring those bowls into the procedure room. And in fact, we even invite folks' faith, whatever their faith is, their belief system, we invite that into the procedure room, which is kind of unique. I think a lot of medicine has divorced spirit or soul out of the discussion. And I am just a firm believer, whatever, and you don't have to have a faith, but we'll meet people where they're at. I'll call it a fractal medicine of there's not just one way to have this happen. We meet people, with deep presence, we listen, and then we follow, and then we energize where folks are. Then we do a laser activated and guided stem cell procedure. These are stem cells that come from our own body. They're called V cells, very small embryonic-like stem cells. They're activated, they're dormant in the body until they're turned on by a light. And we don't put the laser on for 1 minute and not for 6 minutes, but for 3 minutes. That's the most, you get the highest yield of these very small embryonic-like stem cells. I love them because they're yours. They're a genetic match, and they're potently newborn, as in they have a long telomere length. If you took the methylated or biologic age, it would be like you had a day-old cell. So you get a fresh cell that's yours, that's ready to go and turn into any cell line of your body. Then we direct that with the laser. It is not just any laser, it's a song modulated laser. It stands for Strahan Ovocatus Node Generating Laser. So I'm part of the medical advisory board, tapped for the neuroregeneration because of the work that we're doing here at the center and basically the stack that we've put in. So it's not just a panacea, one size fits all, or just this is the one trick pony. It's an integrated approach. We do bioelectric acupuncture on light pads, low-level laser pads, and pulsed electromagnetic frequency. We have My Health devices, which is Skenar technology. It kind of goes into the body and looks for bioimpedance, feeds back to the device, and back and forth. This is a technology that the Russians took to space with them as a kind of a tricorder of Star Trek era, if you're of that age to know what I'm talking about there. The We also have intentions and really utilizing the heart-brain coherence. So we put people into heart and brain coherence, which we can talk about. And then we talk about your future self, bringing your future self to today. And pieces of that is out of Dispenza's work. Pieces of those is out of Lynn McTaggart's work. Piece of that is out of Harry Massey's work as well. So we're really bringing all of these together to really create as quick of change as possible for our patients. So all of those facets of the frequency, intentionality, it's really, this comes from Chinese medicine. I do a lot of Qigong, and we actually train and teach our patients with Qi as energy, Gong as work. And the lineage I learned out of China was called the Jinjiang school, which is the muscle tendon changing school. I wrote about that in my book called Shake It Off, an integrative approach to Parkinson's solutions. But that's not just for Parkinson's folks. That whole basically protocol that I wrote about in that book is for all brain regeneration. I mean, we're seeing it with Alzheimer's, dementia, traumatic brain injuries, multiple sclerosis. All of the neuroregeneration comes from this, my fancy protocol is what I call it, on brain regen. So all of those facets, we're incorporating, frequency of light and sound, intentionality, really speaking to the heart of the matter, and really encouraging our folks. I say I do a lot of nothing all day. We hold the container and make the space, but ultimately the healer is within each one of us. Like, we need to wake up again to, we're truly powerful beings given the right information and support. I know it's scary when I ask people to step out into this unknown with us. It's kind of scary because we don't know. It's the unknown, like that's what we call it. And so having that invitation with a guide to go out into that unknown, I mean, that's really truly where the healing happens, is in that field, in that original blueprint. We're meant to be healed. Our innate intelligence is always striving for that balance and for thriving. But there are a lot of things that get in the way of that, Christine.
Oh, I totally agree. I love everything that you're talking about right now. And for anyone listening, like if these are some kind of new concepts for you, I just want to capture a little bit of what he said, because he just said a lot of really profound things. And one of the things I'll first say is like Newtonian and quantum physics. And you might be like, why are healthcare professionals talking about this? But really, it is the key to everything, because it's understanding how our molecules work at a energy level. Like, talk about root cause medicine, that is going as far down to the root as you can get. And I had a teacher who'd been in practice 52 years, and he kind of solved this conundrum for me, because I think a lot of people think that Newtonian and quantum are contradictory, and that's why they have a hard time merging them. But he did this for me, where he goes, well, quantum just is a larger model and Newtonian fits under it.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, okay. So as soon as I started understanding that Newtonian physics, like what we understand as, our classic world, is something that is perceived from one direction, and then quantum is perceived from literally every single other direction, then you understand how they can merge together. And when you talk about bringing spirituality into the room, I think one of the things we have to think about is quantum physics doesn't use words, doesn't use stories, doesn't use language. And so a lot of religion or spirituality is tied up in stories, but the whole purpose and shared thing between all of them is this concept that you are connected to the love and connection of an energy that's greater than you. And like, you recognize that you are a part of the whole. And so it's really bringing this energy into the room. And I think that is a frequency in itself. And that's kind of what you're touching on, is like, you're using these frequencies from all these different layers, everything from lasers to sound to having this interaction of their belief system in the room and this openness to love. And then the container that you guys are holding, right? That's a container of safety, and safety in itself is a feeling and a frequency. So if we can create this space where we have safety, we have love and connection, and then we have all the therapeutic modalities, that is a pretty potent thing. And there's been tons of research on using lasers and frequencies for even battling things like infection, because we understand that if you use a certain frequency to oscillate an organism at a rate that deteriorates it, all of a sudden you can deactivate that organism. And this is stuff that's painless. You don't even feel it in the body. And I hope that it becomes more and more used in healthcare, because it's an extremely powerful tool, but a lot of people don't even know about it, which is exactly why I wanted to bring you on to talk about this. So I'd love anything else you want to add, and then we can talk about some of the analyses you've been doing.
Sure. Well, I'll talk just on the laser front. So during COVID, there's a company out of Germany called Weber Lasers, and it's Dr. Weber. He hosts a conference called the ISLA, the International Society for Laser Applications. And it's really getting pretty nuanced, where during COVID, I was actually prescribing a Weber laser watch where you could take P5P, activated B5, about 30 minutes before you wore, it's like a Dick Tracy, on the wrist laser. The light, so the P5P would be eaten by the virus, and then the laser light, so it potentized the laser that it would shatter the virus in our blood. And within 5 days, all fevers, 100% of fevers were cleared by just doing laser light. Yeah,
100%.
100%.
Huh.
And, with laser light, so with a vitamin and light, I love that. And it's really powerful, because that was at a time where, everybody was concerned and fearful, and really no good solutions. This was a really nice adjunctive to what we do. You can now do lasers via IV, ultraviolet, purple, yellow, green, blue, red. They all have different functions as far as health benefits for the body. So there are some really amazing research happening. We have a Weber helmet that we put on. It's a red light helmet with different frequencies for brain fog and mental acuity and sharpness and awareness, and for sleep, etc. So it is nuanced. It is becoming more sophisticated as well.
Wow. So let's talk a little bit about like kind of what this journey can look like for clients when they're working with you, because I think this is stuff that people probably didn't even know was an option. And I know that you have been really doing like lots of advanced lab work, and so I'd love to talk about that, but maybe we can tie it into kind of painting what a client journey might look like as they come into your
Yeah.
office.
Yeah, a lot of folks find us. So we are now, thanks to COVID, we are out of the box thinkers, and we can now communicate interstellarly with our technology. So we're able to do telemedicine, and we do a lot of complimentary consults with folks to see if we're a good fit, or what we do here may be of benefit. We can't help everybody, and not everybody qualifies for our care either. But we do a lot with a consult on telemedicine. We sit down with people, we see what's going on, and come up with a plan. If they decide to say, yes, let's do it, well, we do a lot with, we do a voice scan, which is a bioenergetic or a biofield reading, where you count to 10. We use your voice as a hologram for your body. Now, this is very common in Eastern thinking of the macrocosm and the microcosm. What happens in the universe happens in the body. What happens in the cell happens in the body, happens in the universe. So the macrocosm, microcosm are, you are in the universe is in you. It's an old Taoist thought, but it is actually a truism, and we truly are the universe. We're a part of the whole. Oftentimes, my definition of dis-ease is separation from source. And so our goal is to really put people back into their majesty and in their connection that is accessible at every moment in time. So the journey begins with a consult. A journey of 1,000 steps begins with the first step. And then we we do the voice scan. Then there's a whole array of assessment. You know, everybody wants to know, what can I take, doc? What's the purple pill or device? You know, we just got back from the biohacking conference where we saw each other, and, you know, talk about overwhelming and so many different routes to go. And boy, you can stack a lot of things together, but if you don't know what direction you're going, you may just wind up there, right? That's kind of a Yogi Berra quote of, if you don't know where you're going, you might wind up there. Well, you've got to do a proper assessment. So we get that in the consult. It's a different assessment for everybody. There is some foundational stuff like looking at your microbiome, looking at your hormones and the blood chemistries, but then also there's a, you know, diurnal variation of cortisol, of looking at your cortisol throughout the day, because it's not a static measurement. Looking at levels of toxicity, depending on what your exposure and what your symptoms are. Do you have mold toxicity? Do you have Lyme? We don't run those on everybody, but if the case in the taking someone's case and listening to symptom picture, symptomatology, and what's going on with them, occasionally that's an appropriate first step. Some of the things that I'm really excited about, it's this whole movement of digital twinning. You know, laboratory testing is a little bit stale and stodgy and really outdated when you think about it, right? And so I'm part of the medical advisory board for MeScreen. It's a mitochondria test. This one, Hamel Patel, he does the research out of UCSD. He's doing a lot with meditation, non-local healing, etc. Total skeptic turned believer because of the data. Well, he nonchalantly mentions to me, hey, Greg, you know, I've got, you know, my passion is mitochondria. And I finally got this test done. And I was like jumping up and down, like, you're kidding me. Like, every clinician in the world really needs this in their practice to know, are my recommendations actually moving the needle for people? The mitochondria, these little kidney bean organelles in every cell, are the energy factories. It's the holy grail, basically, of the microcosm, right? What's happening in the mitochondria? When you read about it, you'll see more and more research. I think, you know, the new one down the line will be the endoplasmic reticulum, another organelle in the cell. But not to get too geeky with everybody listening, but it's exciting, and it gets me excited as a clinician, because we've never been able to measure this stuff. You know, like the latest and greatest NAD supplements. Do they actually work? Are they working for you? You know, 25% of the population can't absorb NAD intracellularly. That's a fun fact. You know, well, I didn't really know that until a couple months ago. And so having the ability to measure intracellularly at the mitochondria level, we can then run substances in the lab. They got the whole database of 26,000 substances approved by the FDA. It includes supplements, vitamins, minerals, etc., as well as medications and drugs. We can run that in the lab to see how's it going to work in your cell. So that's pretty kind of front of the line stuff. Utilizing metabolomics. There's a whole new movement with large data sets, and running your metabolites through with a lot of different research backed behind it. So that's also exciting on the digital twinning. And then the microbiome testing is really getting sophisticated. I've been checking microbiomes since they came along I don't know, how long has that been? 15 years plus?
Yeah, I like how you listed it as like a basic test when most doctors have never run one. So it's not
Right.
basic, but in our world, it's basic. Like it's a fundamental thing you do, especially in Parkinson's, which has been shown to have retrograde transport of debris from the gut back to the brain.
Yeah. Yeah. And traveling on that vagus nerve, right? There was, just as an aside, because you brought it up, there was the Brock hypothesis. Out of the Netherlands, Dr. Brock took 2 sets of mice, severed the vagus nerve in half of them, and injected alpha-synuclein, which is the misfolded protein or the prion, into the guts of these mice. The mice that developed Parkinson's had an intact vagus nerve. Now, I don't recommend severing your vagus nerve, but it is indicative of that it's traveling from the gut to the brain. A lot of people say, well, where did my Parkinson's come from? It's multifactorial. It's traumas this lifetime, it's ancestral traumas, it's environmental toxicities. It's multifactorial. There's a small portion which is genetic. Some of it could be digestively as well. So we look at that on the testing front, levels of toxicity. We're looking at mindset, limiting beliefs. There is a rigidness or biological decoding with Parkinson's of a should I, shouldn't I component. We're looking at dental health and hygiene, and do you have root canals or any issues with amalgams? So looking at interferences with your receptor to make sure your meridians are open, the chi or energy is flowing, and that means your blood flow is communicating very well throughout your system. So that assessment really is a crucial component, so you're not going in the wrong direction. I see every day people have collected a really good research on a lot of different substances, but they're still suffering or getting worse. And they might be taking 50 to 100 supplements. I think in my book, that's too many. When you go with a Chinese medicine philosophy, we call it the zheng of the formula or direction. There's an emperor or empress, generals and assistants. Everybody moved up to move in a direction. Then you remeasure and you see, okay, are we in close? Do we need to change direction? But you have to measure, and you've got to get a direction rather than the shotgun approach, which is just like, treading water, which I don't want to take that away from anybody. Keep your head above water, don't drown. But also we want you kind of doing the freestyle or the frog to get somewhere.
I think a lot of people think that, or they're searching for the magic bullet and the answer, right? And it's like my magic bullet and your magic bullet might be different.
Yeah.
And so really the magic bullet is getting a comprehensive, customized analysis with a practitioner who follows up with you, changes stuff as you change. Like that is where the magic lies. And so it's all this stuff that you're talking about and all the analyses. And like I mentioned, like a microbiome test, which is different than the stool test that your average doc will run, because the average one just looks for infections that might kill you. The microbiome test looks for like, what is your rainforest doing? Where is it out of balance? Like, how can we foster it? How can we trim the grass in the areas that need it? And then like, man, if we could do endoplasmic reticulum testing, that'd be amazing, because this is basically the organelle inside your cell that produces your proteins, which are like the workers of your body. So you can have all the supplements and building blocks and bricks that you want, but if you don't have the movers to move it around, like it's not going to matter. And your cells also have to be in the right state to receive them. And this goes into, things like you were talking about with like intention, which I think we'll dive into next. But even like the metabolites that you were mentioning, for people who don't know, metabolites are basically breakdown products of what your body is processing. And it's like following a trail of breadcrumbs. You can get very specific in understanding what is present in the body, what's not present, what levels are high, what levels are low. You can look at hormones from a totally third point of view with this and see, like, is your body actually detoxing the hormones that are dangerous for your system? Or are you only looking at like one level measured in blood that for women may not have even been taken at the right time during their cycle? So it's not an actual read. So it's like all of these different labs serve their purpose in different ways. And when we come to like intention and personality, which I think is probably the biggest piece of this all from my own experience with clients, like if the mind isn't right, like nothing else will heal. And when you mentioned like in Parkinson's, there's a concept of like mental rigidity or like feeling frozen, right? Like you can't make decisions. And there's a fascinating book by Gabor Mate called When the Body Says No. And he talks about all these physiological conditions that people experience and what personalities they're tied to. And I just find that fascinating, because when you start to think about your personality and the way that you think and you interact and you talk, that's all frequency. Your words are frequency. Your behavior and your emotions are frequency. So basically coming back to root medicine, which is what is it made of and where is it coming from, that comes back to frequency. And your intention and your thoughts are frequency as well and have dramatic effects on your healing. So I know like in my opinion, nothing is more important than intention. And so if you're going into a healing, you have to go in with the right intention, which if I had one point of contention with our major system at the moment, it's the way they talk to clients. Like I just had a
Mm.
client and I had to talk to her on the phone and bring her out of like a doom spiral because all anybody was doing was talking to her about scary stuff about her joints.
Yeah.
She's okay. She's not like her system isn't breaking down. It's just like she has some issues with her joints that need to be taken care of. But the way that they spoke to her made her feel like her world was ending. And then I kind of brought her back and I was like, okay, like, no, these are our action steps. This is what we're working on. Like, we'll deal with this later when we come to it. But right now, let's focus here. And I think having a guide to help you set your intention like that can make a world of difference. So I'd love to know what you guys do in your clinic around how you bring that into your care for multidimensional dynamic support.
Yeah, you're giving me chills here, Dr. Christine. It's awesome because that is crucial. Every morning, well, almost every morning, I'm training my staff that they are the field. And we're envisioning everyone crossing the threshold through the doorway as healed, including themselves when they come in the morning. And so then we do a little bit of qigong, and we ground ourselves with pulling the molten lava from the earth up into our heart space, and then exhalation to the edges of the universe, and then back through, connecting our hearts together and realizing we are the field. So we start there with each other and with the space, and then we invite our patients into it. I had a really hard learning experience where once I had a 70-plus-year-old in my procedure room getting ready to say intentions for the cells that are going to heal the body. And she said, "I don't feel worthy of healing, doctor." And I was like, oh, I've done you a disservice that you've made it this far in this process. So we've put a lot of safeguards in with coaching before people come in. We're training. We're training on limiting beliefs, really uncovering that stuff before they get here. We're doing the quantum timeline healing as well, going through all of the emotions, clearing those out for folks so that they are a clean slate and ready to receive and are open for it. Because if you're carrying around, it will still work for the skeptics or the naysayers, but all of the research shows it works so much better when you believe and when you're all in on it. And because you're really activating your own healing potential. The brain doesn't know the difference between what you're thinking and what reality is. So if you're envisioning your future self healed, what we're doing is we're imprinting with smells, with sound, their vision, their intention. So we get people to really envision their future self. What is that? Is that walking your daughter down the aisle at her wedding, where currently you have balance and gait issues? Is that playing the guitar again under the cedar trees? And we get them vivid, like what they're wearing, who they're with, what is the emotion they feel with that physicality or that mental emotional state of thriving. And then that's what they're going to every day with the essential oil, depending on what chakra we find that is out of balance with them. And then, so that's a potent treatment because we've implanted the memory in a different region of the brain. And then their intentionality, where attention goes, the energy
And
flows.
blood
And
follows
and
is the
blood
old saying.
follows. So it is really powerful. And you don't, listeners, viewers, you don't need anything to make that happen for yourself other than accountability, just to keep doing it, and be consistent. And of course, life is going to come and get in the way, and maybe you fall out of the habit, but just getting back into it. So having providers, having guides to help remind you to remember to do it, those it's really important because it's very powerful.
Absolutely. And you sometimes you need that help and support. And actually, I'm curious, what is your approach? Because I know those people are out there, maybe listening. Hopefully, this is helpful for you guys. But what's your approach when someone comes into the office and they've been dealing with so much inflammation and stress that their brain isn't totally capable of getting to the point to be able to do that kind of focus and meditation and feeling? Because I know like there's a lot of different tools for it, and you and I actually met at a neurolinguistic programming workshop and certification program, and so it's like we were discussing ways to start to reprogram the mind for situations like that. But what's your approach to that in office?
So really it is creating that safe space. So by walking the grid, we're about due to redo it outside of our building to create that intentional safe space. The recharging center is what we like to say. Charging up the space, keeping the space clean. We do a lot of energetic cleaning. And then it's that intentionality of really going for it, of uncovering the unknown, the unconscious stories that people are telling themselves on a day-to-day basis. It's that story running when you're not paying attention. Like, one question to kind of differentiate, do you feel like the world is a safe space? I can't tell you how many people say, no, it's not. And that is, you're under stress. If that is your answer, you're under stress. And it's unconscious now, it's conscious thought process. But we want to uncover why and where. You may have great evidence over here as to why you think that or feel that. And then I always ask, look, if that's serving you, by all means, hold on to it even tighter. But if that's not serving you, which I'd say 100% of the time it's not, holding on to that story, we need to let it go, kind of trust and surrender. But you got to be safe when you're doing that. You got to feel safe. So it's really around that ferocious guardian, right, of protecting our folks that come to us fiercely. Like we're not messing around here, because it is very vulnerable. We're not looking to reinstitute any trauma for anyone. So it is really with the intention of, no, we're going for transformation. We're not messing around. And we only work with folks that are interested in that. Like, no, I want transformation, doc. I don't want to see 13 providers and have chronic illness for the rest of my life. It's, no, I'm ready to put the flag in the earth for me. We have our whole team to support you in that journey. It's different for everybody. That's kind of what makes it interesting for us providers. But it's also so rewarding and humbling to truly care for people. We are bringing that heart back. We lead with our hearts. We open our hearts, and we're having that heart space to do this work in is truly an honor. I go home at the end of the day with Kitty, my wife. She's also, as part of the practice here, so our sound healer, applied kinesiologist, radionics practitioner extraordinaire. And we get to like pinch each other, in a kind, gentle way. But like, wow, we get to hang out in this field all day long and help people. And it really is just really humbling, but honored work. Yeah.
I really like the way that you put that, and there's kind of two things I want to address next, and one of them is like you've talked about the concept of love infused medicine as a practitioner. I think that's kind of what you're just touching on, and it's like we can view it as from a practitioner standpoint of like it can be a lot of energy to pour that much love, but at the same time, if you learn how to connect to the field and you're doing preparatory practices for yourself before you're seeing clients, you're actually charging yourself. And
Yeah.
so this practice actually becomes a form of charging and being a conduit and a channel, which I actually think I learned early from one of my great mentors that is more the duty of a healer than to be the savior. And I think when you're trying to be the savior, it's exhausting. And when you're learning how to be a conduit, it's charging. And so for any practitioners listening, I think that's a worthwhile concept to understand. And if you want to hear Dr. Eckel speak more or anything, they actually have a really profound like practitioner workshop coming up in October in Utah.
October,
So
yes.
we'll talk about that at the end a little bit. But the other thing I wanted to open up for you to chat about a little bit is some of the results that you've had, right? Because we've talked about like all the different tools, but let's talk about some of the outcomes that you've had.
Yeah. So, Yeah, I'm getting ready to publish a case series of 5 folks with Parkinson's, or uh, 2 of them have no evidence of Parkinson's disease. 3 of them are 90% improved or better. Um, and so this is really the Bannister 4-minute mile. This isn't supposed to be happening. You'd think their neurologist would call Dr. Greg and say, hey, what are you doing up there? No, none of them can even see the reality where people with a chronic neurodegenerative condition could get better. So we're really getting serious on the research front of looking for some objective data. We're bringing in Carillion photography with the BioWell folks, and measuring energy fields, like looking at the subtle energy field and measurements, because some of the measurements now are honestly pretty crude because they're in the physical form, and we're really wanting to create change in the field. So we're getting ready to publish that. I have a new book coming out, The Parkinson's Miracles, with an S, because we have a growing online community of what I call brain renegades. These are folks making different choices for themselves and getting different results, and they're surrounding themselves with community that are also making different choices and getting different results. So it's like feeding back to ourselves the change so we can expedite the change, because seeing is believing, but then sometimes you got to believe it to see it. Not many people in that category. So if we can show more people the results, and real people just like them that have changed, it becomes much easier to make that change, and it gets a lot more wind in the sails. So I'm super excited about that. I was actually just on a call today, and because we have some DAT scans before and after, which are basically imaging for dopaminergic receptors of the substantia nigra, which is the issue with Parkinson's disease. That's a degradation of those dopamine receptors. There was some talk of even Nature Journal, which would be incredible to be published there. And so I just ask, and back to your component of the new healing versus the old healing, right? The old way was depletion and exhaustion and just leave it all on the field. The new way, which is kind of the original way, which is direct to source, of allowing, coming from full cup and sharing from that overflowing effervescent space. That is the most exciting thing, Dr. Christine, of what is happening now, and kind of why I believe I incarnated for this time, and to be here to share that with folks, because it really is energizing. And when you share from an abundant space, because energy is abundant. I mean, infinity is a real concept, and it's been going on forever. And when you get your brain around that, it's like, okay, this is my time on the ride right now. Let's make the most of it and just shoot for the moon, because this is what we've got. We don't know how long we're on the planet together. So that comes up to the event in October. It's called Zenergy, the conference, and I'll be sure to get some of the links over. It's reminding me I've got to put that on my pages as well. It's October 3rd, 4th, and 5th in Denver, Colorado. And this is not going to be your typical conference. This is a conference where we're co-creating it, and I'm just energizing it now. And I'm the MC. And Harry Massey is kind of the host, and he said, you never follow the script, Dr. Greg. I said, well, that's why you chose me, right? That's why you got me as the MC. And we're going to really be bringing the energy, raising everybody together, our vibration, and it's experiential. That container is going to be potent, and there's never been a conference like this on the planet. So I thank you for bringing it up, because I'm excited to share that with as many people as possible. So some amazing live music and meditations and movement, and really it's going to be a transformative event in 3 days too.
Well, and I think there's a variety of cool things happening in October, that being one of the ones. And then there's another one happening in Utah around modern holistic health, another clinic that I know like you kind of integrate with and some of our communities integrate with. So for anyone who's curious, feel free to comment below and like we'll tell you about any of the places that you can go learn about this stuff, because that's all we want. That's why we wanted to do this, is just so you know that it exists and know that it's an option and you know what you can ask about. And reach out to us if you have questions, because if like someone had asked like, is any of this covered by insurance? It is like, talk about being on top of the research. This is some of the newest research out there. So unfortunately, it is a tricky thing to get insurance to cover, but it's effective and the results are proving that, and the data is coming out more and more. Go ahead.
I always like to answer that question, and it's a good question, but you got to think about insurance like your car, right? Major medical is important if you need to go into the hospital, but with your car, you got to pay for the tires and the oil changes and the upkeep, and you get a ping in the windshield. Like, you've got to pay out of pocket. Unfortunately, the system has been captured for ill will, and basically it's disease management and sick care. So they're not going to pay for your wellness. They're not going to pay for the regeneration of you. That is your responsibility. I know when you're ill or you have dis-ease, that's very expensive. That is the most expensive state. I treat a lot of folks that have no issues with money, but when they don't have their health, they have only one concern, which is getting their health back. And so we've got to get our thinking proper around this. And of course, we want that to change. And there is some movement upon us to kind of gain control of that system, but it is so far gone in that they're just looking to keep you ill, pump you full of pills, and then have you pass. It's really unfortunate, but it is true. I've been at it 25 years and around the block so many times. It's like, okay, we're just going to create the new system where the old one becomes irrelevant. That's a Buckminster Fuller quote, but I love it because you just create the new system. We're creating cases of people that no longer have Parkinson's disease. Well, it becomes a no-brainer. Like, yeah, I want that medicine. I don't want this medicine. This is disease, sick care, cut me, tox me out, etc. I want the one that I actually get correction and transformation.
Yep, absolutely. And I still love our conventional medicine system. It has its place at the right times. But what I love even more is now that these systems are starting to merge and understand each other. And I'm just going to be honest, it's not going to happen through insurance because that's a for-profit industry.
Yeah.
So if you can talk to your practitioners and educate them and ask them about what you want to learn, it's the same concept as voting with your dollar. If they're not getting financial gain, they're going to shift to a place where they get financial gain. So if we're putting all of our money into holistic healthcare and paying out of pocket so that our children can benefit from that, that is long-term thinking for sustainability of our systems. We just have to do it with our own intention and our own choice. And the other thing I'll point out is if you think that your healthcare should cost less than your haircut, you should reevaluate. So I'm just going to put that out there. So coming back to that question around like love infused medicine as a practitioner, I'd love if you could just share any other concepts you have on that. And then for practitioners out there who might be feeling burnt out and they want to kind of shift to this model, I'd love if you could talk about how you navigate healthy boundaries in that connection.
Yeah. We're taught in medical school to not have that transference, right? Or like put up this stoic wall where your heart is not welcome in the encounter. And honestly, the heart has been taken out of medicine and it really needs to be in there. It is the most potent aspect of healing for the practitioner and for the client or the patient. Just knowing that as a practitioner and patient and with healthy boundaries and integrity, when your heart is open and flowing and you're running your toric field, you're really meeting the world out, at least at an arm's length, if not further, depending on how strong your vitality is or how vital you are. So that there is no transference into your system. It's when the practitioner's integrity is depleted and run down that there is no boundary, and that the client's stuff kind of comes in. And I remember when I was a new practitioner 25 years ago, and I would be exhausted. I see 6 people in a day. I was like wiped out, like what happened? And then, you sometimes have patients that just kind of suck the life force out of you. But I didn't have an understanding of this concept of healthy boundaries, of integrity of self, and having your body battery charged, where you're meeting out here. It doesn't mean that you're not empathetic, but it means that their stuff is not intermingling with yours. You're running your field so large that it's effervescent and overflowing source energy. That means your cup gets filled up first. It means you're healthy, you're healed, you're in thrive mode. Now, not every day do I feel 100% thrive mode, but it is the state of being to keep the integrity of my vessel sound, so that I'm meeting in a healthy way out. And then to understand it's not me doing the healing. It's the person doing the healing. It's the innate intelligence. It's the information coming into their system. Sure, I'm facilitating the space. It's my heart energy and toric field creating a container for change and transformation with my intention and setup for the individual, an invitation for them to step into the wide unknown of that quantum field where all healing happens and bliss and joy is effervescently abundant. But that's the intention of that boundary. So it doesn't mean, like, look, I cry with my patients every week. There are tears here, and they're beautiful. And I'll even sometimes cry when I'm giving lectures. And what I say is it's the divine masculine, the ability to have all emotions and not get attached to them. They're, as you mentioned, Dr. Christine, they're just frequencies being emitted out of particles out of our bodies, and they should flow freely. So you have to be comfortable with yourself. You've got to be sound and grounded in your body, in your vessel, in your central channel, and really activating from source and allowing. I loved Gabby Bernstein at the event we were just at. She was giving a talk at Dave Asprey's 10th annual biohacking, and basically stopped within the first 3 minutes of her lecture. It was so inspiring. She threw her outline out and just had everybody ground. She's like, the energy, I just am not connected. I'm overthinking. I'm not present. I'm not authentic. I'm not in my channel. That's what we're all here to remind each other, to be in the channel, in the heart, opening that portal. That is the multidimensional portal that we access the frequencies where, it's source energy, like all of it, the whole universe and multi-dimensions, it's all one thing, and it's been going on forever. So like, it's really acknowledging and tying into that frequency, and then speaking from the heart, coming from there. Not dangerous neighborhood to go into by yourself, right? So it's always bringing that energy into the heart and activating from there and leading and guiding from there, listening deeply to your heart to resonate and give others the ability and invitation to go into theirs, because it is safe here, right? We're in it together. We're pretending to be separate in this reality. And so we're bringing the love. That's what we're doing.
I could not agree with you more. And that was just beautifully stated. Thank you. And, to any practitioners out there that are questioning this, I just want you to ask yourself, like, are you feeling replenished and are you feeling happy? Because if the answer is no, some of these practices might be beneficial for your longevity and the sustainability of your practice and the outcomes of your patients. Because I know if I am super depleted, I am not the best version of myself as a practitioner, versus when I do my self-care and I do my recharging and I do my meditation, I come from a significantly more resourced place, and I am a much better resource for my clients. I'm better at following up, I'm better at asking questions, and I see more things because I am energized and present. So I think everything you're talking about is beautiful, and I hope it can permeate healthcare more and more. And, I've had a couple of people asking about the conference and everything. So if people wanted to learn more about you or more about Energy4Life Centers, or they wanted to learn more about the conference, which someone else had said, like, can you guys talk with Dr. Dispenza about this? That'd be mind blowing. If I'm not mistaken, I think he's been one of the people that's considered to be on the roster for the conference. So please share where people can find all this cool stuff.
Yeah, so on my Instagram, in the link tree, we've got the links there. I'm going to make sure that those are all working. You can go to energy4lifecenters.com as well on the interwebs. We also have a very active YouTube channel, but I would say we're on Instagram. Keep it here. You can go at Dr. Greckel, DrGreckel. That's my handle here. You'll be able to find the E4L centers there, and then information about the conference as well. And we'd love to have you. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, and someone had asked, can it only be practitioners attending? No, this is for
No.
everybody. Please come.
Yeah.
Please tell your friends. Please bring everybody. Like, we want people to know about this stuff, and we want it to spread. So help the movement of getting true holistic healthcare out there, please.
Yeah. And it's going to be happening. Like I said, it's going to be, I'm already energizing it now. We're in June. It's October. But we're, again, that future self of envisioning and pulling that future too. So I am energizing transformation and joy and bliss and energy, effervescent, bubbling energy and fun. We got to play more in this lifetime. And that's, really what we're doing. This is going to be a charge up the light beings to take back to your communities, for yourself, your families, and communities. And this is how the change happens.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this, Dr. Eckel. This was one of my favorite chats, and I love what you're doing. It's amazing. Keep it up.
Well, thank you. Thank you and your community. And I'm really psyched to be able to share. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. And any last comments for anybody, or anything you just wish they knew as they were leaving?
Just tune in. The answer lies within. Trust your heart and listen. The answers may not come today, but just get in that habit of tuning in, getting connected to yourself, because that internal guidance is going to be so, so important as we go forward. I don't know if you've noticed, but it's a little wacky out there in the world these days. And so the more we can tune in, remind each other to get into our hearts, breathe, calm down, and just be present. That's how I love that. And so I look forward to meeting you all in that space.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, Dr. Christine. Bye, everybody.